Old Man's Journey is a game that I loved more once I'd spent some time away from it. After the tears had dried from my face, I realised that the heart of this point-and-click adventure is found in the reflection after the credits have rolled, even more so after the second playthrough. Developed by Austrian developer Broken Rules, Old Man's Journey is a 90-minute story game about family, sacrifice, self-centeredness and loss. It's funny and heartwarming and tranquil and perspective-changing, but crucially, it tells a pedestrian and common story in a mystical way. I'm compelled and obliged to say that it's a game best played with no prior knowledge, which is an ironic sting for someone who just spent 7 hours making a video about said game. I will, of course, be attentive to spoilers because it's the journey aspect of Old Man's Journey that bored a hole in through my heart like some emotional targeting earthworm. In this video I want to talk briefly about the tenets of this game and why it's been resonating with so many folks online. I want to look at its mechanics and its sense of place and the way that it employs passive storytelling. So let's start here. For all intensive purposes, you play only a witness to the old man on his journey. When the story begins, the old man lives alone in a presumably low-rent lighthouse to one day receive a letter and set out on the namesake's journey. Since the game only reveals snapshots of exposition throughout, you don't really know why you're journeying until the very end. If we were to draw a through line, the story dynamics are comparatively absent, but the game is wholly a visual spectacle that masterfully tells numerous stories in a wonderfully passive way. But let's first talk about mechanics, real quick, I promise. If you weren't aware, there's a brilliant YouTube creator called Mark Brown who makes these incredibly insightful video game essays called Game Maker's Toolkit. He has a great video called Nintendo Putting Play First. So glazing over the fact that he shares my passion for being a Nintendo shill, Mark explains that what makes the company's games so unique, balanced and innovative is a philosophy of prioritizing function over form, which in short means how something looks is determined by how it works. Old Man's Journey is equally brilliant because it takes this philosophy, shrugs its shoulders and throws it ambivalently into the sea. The central mechanic of the game is based on manipulating the layers of its folded paper aesthetic to create linked paths for the old man to walk. How it works is determined by how it looks, you could say. It sounds simple, but there is a surprising amount of depth here. Some puzzles are solved by allowing a specific amount of slack to each layer in order to reach new heights. Some instances require you to earth-bend bridges and hillsides to create a track for a train, while in a few scenarios you have to navigate clusters of sheep similar to that fox grain chicken riddle. The world is so enchanting and inviting that consolidating more mechanics would only busy up and slow down the flow of the game. Adding more interactivity to a game doesn't always improve the overall experience, the same way that throwing more ingredients into a dish doesn't create culinary excellence. Therefore, we can say the primary and only mechanic of Old Man's Journey is a tool simply to guide your character through to the next environment, and that's because the real star of the game are the visuals. They are the directive for storytelling, which is where Old Man's Journey excels. So, if you haven't been paying attention, alternative storytelling has been really prevalent in games of late, and continues to be executed in such exciting and brilliant ways. Last year's Firewatch saw developers build on the heavily utilised dialogue choice mechanic, with their walkie-talkie conversations that mapped out, expertly and emotionally, an entire relationship between two characters that were integrally distanced. What Remains of Edith Finch uses an old family house filled with heirlooms and memories to tell a retrospective story, whereas Virginia, which I did make a video about, substitutes tacit exposition for universal and simple facial expressions to convey complex relationships and ideas. Old Man's Journey instead uses visual cues, some obvious, some subtle, to drip justification and story prompts to the player without ever bogging you down with encumbering details. At certain checkpoints throughout the game, the old man will sit and reflect on his life, generating a snapshot or significant memory that he holds dear, but these don't contribute to the whole picture until the final reveal. And this is where a second playthrough really benefits the player. With full knowledge of what was in that original letter that kick-started this whole expedition, the old man doesn't feel like he's on a metaphorical journey, he's clearly on a mission, and an atmosphere of urgency looms. But you wouldn't feel that glancing at the game environment in, say, a YouTube video about Old Man's Journey. The coastal setting of continental Europe is serene and detached from the pervasive influence of city culture. The sense of place evoked through the gorgeous traditional folk music and rural land environments that seem untouched by man contribute to this overarching idea of the old man taking the road less travelled. The colourful and eclectic architecture make each settlement feel unique and lived in, like 100 little stories take place here every day. And this is where the passive storytelling breathes an invigorating life into the game. On second playthrough, you're so much more cognizant to all the little interactions with NPCs that make up this human pastiche, because you already know the emotional beats of the old man. As a result, you'll pay more attention to the men playing cards, the two lovers watching the sunset, the little girl on the train, and the travelling musician at the hotel. You ask, who are these people? What journeys are they on? They're tertiary characters in the grand scheme, but if we switch the focus of the game to them, they would probably look upon an old man sitting at a bus stop with mild interest, unaware that he's embarking on one of the most important journeys of his entire life. This perspective gives the whole game a lifeblood of vulnerable humanity, a rare quality in a medium that doesn't often equate empathy with strength. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video.